Whis, a romance sleep story, presented by Bedtime Stories. Make yourself comfortable, close your eyes, take a slow, deep breath. And now, let the story begin. The late afternoon sun, a buttery wash of gold, filtered through the thick canopy of pines, painting shifting patterns on the gravel path. Iris breathed in deeply, the scent of damp earth and resin-rich wood filling her lungs, a stark contrast to the exhaust fumes and hurried cacophony she'd left behind. This was it. Glen. Her new beginning. She steered her old reliable sedan, affectionately nicknamed the Wanderer, around a final bend, and there it was. A small, unassuming cottage, nestled like a secret between a cluster of ancient oaks and a whispering creek. Its stone facade was softened by a riot of climbing roses, their last defiant blooms clinging to the weathered walls. A chimney, stout and promising, reached towards the sky, hinting at the warmth within. Unlocking the heavy oak door, Iris stepped into silence. Not an empty, echoing silence, but a rich, textured one, punctuated only by the gentle murmur of the creek outside and the rustle of leaves in the breeze. The air inside was cool, carrying the faint, sweet scent of aged wood and something else. The cottage, though small, felt instantly right. A living room with a stone fireplace dominating one wall, a kitchen bright with sunlight, and a bedroom looking out onto a small, wild garden. But it was the back room, a spacious, light-filled annex with large windows, that truly captured her heart. This would be her studio, her haven, her place to finally make the pottery she'd only dreamed of in the frantic pace of her city life. For years, Iris had lived a life of polished surfaces and carefully curated ambitions. A successful marketing career, a sleek apartment, a social calendar that never truly felt like her own. But beneath the veneer of achievement, a quiet yearning had grown. A longing for authenticity, for hands-on creation, for a connection to something real. The ceramics, born from earth and fire, had been her secret escape, a messy, grounding antidote to the digital world. Until one day, the yearning had become a roar, and she'd packed up her life, leaving behind the expectations and the subtle heartache of a relationship that had simply faded. She hadn't run away, not exactly. She'd wind towards something, towards the quiet hum of her own spirit. She spent the first few hours simply unpacking essentials, her movements slow and deliberate, savoring each moment. The sturdy wooden table she'd brought, a cherished heirloom from her grandmother, found its place in the kitchen. Her box of well-worn books spilled across the living room floor. And her potter's wheel, still wrapped in its protective blankets, waited patiently in the studio. As dusk began to settle, painting the sky in hues of lavender and rose, Iris brewed a mug of herbal tea. She carried it to the small porch, settling into a creaky wicker chair she'd found tucked away in the shed. The air was cool now, carrying the crisp promise of autumn. Fireflies blinked on and off like tiny ethereal lanterns in the gathering gloom. And the creek, just beyond the garden gate, sang its lullaby. Whispering Creek, she murmured, the name feeling instinctively right for this place. It wasn't on any map she'd seen, but it was Horry Creek now. Her own private symphony. Over the next few days, Iris began to weave herself into the fabric of Everglen. The town was a charming mosaic of brick storefronts and clapboard houses, nestled snugly in a valley embraced by the Everglen forest. There was a general store, its shelves crammed with everything from fresh produce to fishing lures, run by a kindly woman named Martha, who dispensed local gossip along with her hand-knitted scarves. A tiny post office, a cafe where the coffee was strong and the cinnamon rolls legendary, and a small library that smelled wonderfully of old paper and quiet dreams. Everyone she met offered a warm smile, a friendly nod, an easy welcome. It was a stark contrast to the polite indifference of the city, and Iris found herself relaxing into it, shedding layers of urban guardedness she hadn't even realized she was wearing. She bought groceries from Martha, chatted with Mrs. Gable at the library about local history, and discovered the best spot for a morning croissant at the Daily Grind. Her studio, however, remained mostly untouched, a canvas awaiting its first brushstrokes. She needed inspiration, yes, but more than that, she needed to connect with the very essence of Everglen. She started taking long walks, following the winding paths that branched off from her cottage, leading deeper into the Everglen forest. These woods were ancient, majestic. Towering pines, their needles a soft carpet underfoot, reached for the sky, their branches swaying with a sound like a collective sigh. It was a sound that had resonated with her from her very first moment here, a gentle, continuous murmur. She found herself calling them the Whispering Woods. The name felt like a secret shared between her and the trees. One afternoon, during one of these explorations, she stumbled upon something unexpected. Tucked away on a less traveled path, half hidden by overgrown ferns, was a small, weather-beaten wooden sign. The lettering, though faded, was beautifully carved. I Zealous Thorn, Woodcraft and Restoration WI, Witty, Wendcraft. An arrow pointed down an even narrower track, almost swallowed by the forest floor. Iris hesitated. She wasn't looking for anything specific, just a walk. But the sign, with its elegant craftsmanship, piqued her curiosity. She was a maker herself, appreciating the artistry of others. And there was something about the quiet solitude of the setting that suggested a kindred spirit. Following the arrow, she pushed through a veil of ivy, emerging into a small clearing. And there it was, a large rustic workshop, built from rough-hewn timber, its roof covered in moss. Sunlight dappled through the leaves, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air of the open doorway. The air here was rich with the scent of sawdust, linseed oil, and something else. Something warm and earthy, like old wood brought back to life. A low, rhythmic thump, 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 thump emanated from within. Iris paused, feeling a pang of intrusion. She wasn't sure if this was a public workshop or a private sanctuary. But her curiosity, a quiet, persistent thing, urged her forward. She peered tentatively into the open doorway. The interior was a symphony of wood. Shelves laden with tools, chisels, planes, saws, all gleaming with use, lined the walls. Piles of timber, planks of oak, cherry, and maple, lay stacked in orderly rows. And in the center, bathed in a shaft of sunlight, stood a man. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell carelessly across his forehead. His sleeves were rolled up, revealing strong forearms dusted with sawdust. He was bent over a workbench, meticulously sanding a piece of wood, his movements precise and absorbed. The rhythmic thump, 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 thump was the sound of his sanding block. He didn't notice her at first. Iris watched, mesmerized by the quiet intensity of his focus. There was a reverence in his touch, a deep respect for the material he was working with. It was the same reverence she felt for her clay. Finally, he paused, straightening up with a slow stretch of his back. He ran a hand through his hair, then turned, and his eyes, the color of rich earth, met hers. Iris felt a blush creep up her neck. "Oh, I'm so sorry," she stammered, feeling utterly foolish for gawking. "I didn't mean to intrude. I saw your sign." She gestured vaguely back towards the path. A slow smile spread across his face, crinkling the corners of his eyes. It was a kind smile, gentle and a little shy. "No intrusion at all," he said, his voice a low, warm rumble that seemed to harmonize with the quiet of the workshop. "Most people don't venture this far off the main path. What can I do for you?" He had a presence, a quiet strength that made the small workshop feel even more grounded. He wasn't overtly handsome in a flashy way, but there was an honesty in his gaze, a rugged appeal in the way his clothes seemed to fit him perfectly, as if he'd been born in them. "My name is Iris," she managed, extending a hand. "Iris Caldwell. I just moved into the old Miller cottage by the creek." He took her hand, his grip firm and warm, calloused but gentle. "Silas Thorne, welcome to Everglen, Iris. Heard you were settling in." Of course, she thought with an inner smile. This was Everglen. News traveled faster than the creek. "Yes," she said, pulling her hand back, though a lingering warmth remained. "It's beautiful here. The quiet is exactly what I needed." He nodded, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. "It has a way of getting under your skin, doesn't it? The quiet." "It does," she agreed, then remembered her initial reason for stopping. Or rather, her lack of one. I didn't actually have a specific reason for coming. I just saw your sign, and I'm a ceramicist. So I appreciate craftsmanship. Your sign was beautiful." He chuckled, a soft, pleasant sound. "Thank you. Always good to hear. Not many folks around here looking for bespoke signs these days." "What do you usually make then?" she asked, gesturing around the workshop. "All sorts," he replied, picking up the piece he'd been sanding. It was a section of an antique chair leg, intricately carved. Restoration mostly. Bring old pieces back to life. Sometimes custom furniture, if the spirit moves me. Or if someone's got a particularly interesting commission. Restoration, Iris repeated, intrigued. That's wonderful, giving new life to something old. It resonated with her own journey, in a way. Every piece has a story, Silas said, his gaze distant for a moment, as if he were seeing the past lives of the wood in his hands. My job is to help it tell that story again, clearly and beautifully. He set the chair leg down and wiped his hands on a rag, then gestured towards a sturdy wooden stool near the entrance. Would you like to come in? Have a look around? Iris's hesitation vanished. I'd love to. She stepped into the workshop, the scent of wood even more potent here. She ran her hand over a smooth, polished tabletop, then paused by a shelf displaying smaller, finished items, intricately carved wooden boxes, delicate turned bowls, a set of robust, perfectly balanced kitchen utensils. Each piece bore the hallmark of a master craftsman: attention to detail, a deep understanding of the wood, and a quiet artistry. These are exquisite, Silas, she said, picking up a small lidded box made of what looked like dark cherry wood. The lid fit with a satisfying, almost airtight gathwak data. Thank you, he said, watching her, a hint of pleasure in his eyes. That one's a jewelry box. A commission for a wedding anniversary. You have a real gift, she told him, turning the box over in her hands. It's like you can feel the soul of the wood. He ducked his head slightly, a blush coloring his cheeks. Just years of practice, and a lot of patience. Patience is a gift too, Iris replied, thinking of the countless hours she spent coaxing form from clay. They fell into a comfortable silence, Iris admiring his work, Silas observing her. She felt an ease with him that surprised her. There was no pressure, no expectation, just a shared appreciation for the quiet pursuit of creation. Do you have a studio set up yet? He asked eventually, breaking the quiet. Almost, she said. I've got the room and my wheel, but I'm looking for a few things. A good sturdy work table, maybe some shelving. And I'd love to find a particular kind of wood for a project. A slab of something naturally edged for a display piece. Naturally edged, you say? His eyes lit up. Live edge. I might have just the thing. What kind of wood were you thinking? Something light or dark? Something with character, she mused. Maybe a local wood. Something that tells a story of Everglen. He walked over to a stack of larger wood slabs tucked into a corner, carefully moving a few pieces. I've got some salvaged maple, a bit of black walnut, and a rather interesting piece of sycamore I found down by the creek a few months ago. It's got a beautiful grain and a natural curve that's quite unique. He pulled out a wide, irregularly shaped slab of wood, its edges still rough with bark, the surface polished smooth in places, revealing a swirling, almost iridescent grain. It was stunning. Iris gasped softly, reaching out to touch it. The wood felt cool and smooth under her fingertips, a testament to Silas' care. This is perfect. Exactly what I was imagining, but even better. It's been waiting for the right project, he said, a quiet satisfaction in his voice. I held on to it, knew it was special, but never found the right home for it in my own work. How much? She asked, already picturing her delicate ceramic bowls resting on its surface. Let's just say it's a fair trade for the compliments, he said, a playful glint in his eye. Or, perhaps, for a tour of your new studio, once you're set up. Iris smiled, a genuine, unburdened smile that reached her eyes. I'd like that very much, Silas. Consider it a deal. They spent another hour talking, not just about wood and clay, but about the quiet rhythms of Everglen, the beauty of the forest, the simple pleasures of a life lived close to nature. He told her about growing up in the valley, learning his craft from his grandfather, about the changing seasons and the ways the light fell through the trees at different times of the year. She told him about her journey from the city, her search for authenticity, her passion for ceramics. There was an unspoken understanding between them, a recognition of shared values. It felt easy, comfortable, as if they'd known each other for years rather than mere hours. As the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the workshop floor, Iris realized how much time had passed. I should probably get going, she said reluctantly. I still have boxes to unpack. Of course, Silas said, walking her to the door. I'll clean up this piece of sycamore for you. Give it a good sanding, a light oil finish. It'll bring out the grain beautifully. When would you like to pick it up? No, I couldn't ask you to do that, she protested. It's no trouble, he insisted gently. Part of the deal, remember? And I'd like to see it go to a good home. How about Friday afternoon? Friday afternoon would be perfect, she agreed, a little flutter of anticipation in her chest. Another reason to return. Another reason to talk to Silas. She stepped out of the workshop, turning back to give him a final smile. He stood in the doorway, framed by the warm glow of the setting sun, a quiet, solid figure. Thank you, Silas, she said, her voice softer than she intended. For the wood, and for the welcome. He simply nodded, his eyes warm. It was good to meet you, Iris. See you Friday. Iris walked back through the whispering woods, the air cooler now, the sounds of the forest more pronounced. The scent of pine and damp earth still clung to her, but now it was mingled with the faint, warm smell of sawdust and linseed oil. A new scent, a new memory. She felt lighter, more settled than she had since arriving in Everglen. Her heart, which had felt a little bruised and wary for so long, now held a quiet hum of contentment. It wasn't just the promise of her studio finally coming to life, or the discovery of the perfect piece of wood. It was the unexpected connection, the shared moment of understanding with a man who, like her, found beauty and meaning in the quiet act of creation. As she reached her cottage, the creek continued its soft song, and the ancient oaks rustled their leaves in the evening breeze. But now, amidst the familiar sounds of her new home, she could almost hear a new whisper in the air, a whisper of possibility, of connection, of a story just beginning to unfold. The Whis of Everglen felt richer, deeper, infused with a new, gentle magic. She couldn't wait for Friday. The Whis of Everglen felt richer, deeper, infused with a new, gentle magic. She couldn't wait for Friday. The week that followed was a delightful blur of anticipation and focused creation. Elara found her hands moving with a renewed purpose in her studio. Each lump of clay seemed to hum with the low thrum of possibility that now vibrated within her. She worked on a series of small, delicate bowls, their forms inspired by the smooth, worn stones she'd seen in the creek bed, and the gentle curve of a hand cupping water. With each turn of the wheel, she thought of him. The man with the kind eyes and the hands that knew the language of wood. She still didn't know his name, a detail that added a touch of whimsical mystery to her burgeoning excitement. He was simply the man from the market, or the man with the quiet smile. Yet, in her mind, she had already woven a tapestry of impressions around him. His thoughtful gaze as he admired her pottery, the way his voice had deepened slightly when he spoke of finding the soul of a piece, the subtle strength in his posture. It wasn't a crush, not yet, but a profound curiosity, a sense of recognition that whispered of something significant. Her days were filled with the familiar rhythm of wedging clay, throwing pots, trimming, and glazing. But now, nestled between the tasks, were moments of quiet reflection. She'd catch herself smiling into her coffee cup as she watched the morning light filter through the oak leaves, a smile born not just of the beauty of Everglen, but of the knowledge that someone else, kindred in spirit, was perhaps experiencing similar moments, finding similar meaning in the world. She wondered what he crafted, something grand and sculptural, or intricate and detailed. She pictured his workshop, dust motes dancing in sunbeams, the scent of wood and honest toil hanging in the air. Wednesday brought a light, refreshing rain that tapped a gentle rhythm on her cottage roof. Elara sat by the window, sketching new designs, the scent of damp earth and petrichor filling the air. She found herself drawing shapes that were more organic, less structured than her usual work, twisted branches, roots delving deep, the flowing lines of a river. There was a wilder, more untamed beauty calling to her, a reflection, she realized, of the unexpected wildness that had stirred within her own heart. She felt a lightness, a freedom she hadn't known she was missing until now. By Thursday evening, a soft, nervous flutter had joined the gentle hum of anticipation. She laid out a simple, elegant dress, forest green, the color of the moss on the ancient oaks, and a soft cream shawl. She didn't want to overthink it, but she wanted to feel her best, not just for him, but for herself. This wasn't just a potential date. It was an exploration, a chance to connect with someone who truly saw the world through a similar lens. It felt important. Friday dawned clear and bright, the air crisp and fragrant with pine and damp earth. Elara woke early, a sense of vibrant energy coursing through her. She spent the morning puttering in her studio, finishing a few pieces, but her mind kept drifting to the afternoon. She decided to walk to the market, giving herself plenty of time, wanting to experience the journey as much as the destination. The Everglen market was a vibrant tapestry of colors and sounds, a hub of local life. Farmers sold their fresh produce, bakers offered warm, crusty breads, and artisans displayed their creations. Elara navigated through the cheerful throng, her heart giving a little skip as she approached the area where the handmade crafts were sold. And there he was. He stood beside a stall laden with wooden sculptures, each piece radiating a quiet strength, a connection to the natural world. There were graceful birds with outstretched wings, their feathers intricately carved, and abstract forms that seemed to capture the essence of wind or water. He wore a simple linen shirt, the sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms, and his hair, a rich chestnut brown, caught the sunlight in glints of gold. His smile when he saw her was even warmer than she remembered, crinkling the corners of his kind eyes. "Elara," he said, his voice a low melodic rumble. It was the first time she'd heard him say her name, and it felt like a soft chime. "Hello," she replied, a blush rising to her cheeks. "It's good to see you again." "And you," he said, stepping out from behind his stall. "I'm Reese, by the way, Reese Morgan." He extended a hand, and hers nestled perfectly within his, a brief, warm connection. His palm was calloused, a testament to his craft. "Reese," she repeated, tasting the name. It suited him. "Your work is beautiful." She gestured to the sculptures. "You capture so much life in the wood." He smiled, a genuine, humble expression. "Thank you. I try to listen to what the wood wants to become. It often tells me." He paused, then gestured towards a small carved bird, a robin with a tilted head, poised as if about to sing. "This little fellow, for example, came from a piece of cherry wood that had a knot right where its eye is. It just felt like a bird waiting to emerge." Elara leaned closer, admiring the intricate detail, the subtle texture he'd achieved. "It's exquisite, like it could fly right out of your hand." "Perhaps it will one day," he chuckled. "But I think it prefers the safety of the perch for now." He then met her gaze, his eyes full of warmth. "Shall we find that coffee you mentioned? My stall mate can mind things for a bit." "I'd love to," Elara said, her heart feeling lighter than air. They walked side by side through the market, a comfortable silence settling between them, punctuated by the cheerful buzz of the crowd. Reese led her to a small, charming cafe tucked away in a quiet corner, its outdoor tables shaded by a sprawling wisteria vine. They ordered their coffees, a strong black coffee for him, a creamy latte for her, and found a secluded table. "So, Elara of the captivating pottery," Reese began, stirring his coffee. "Tell me, what brought you to Everglen? I've been here for years, but I always enjoy hearing new perspectives." Elara took a sip of her latte, the warmth spreading through her. "I moved here a few months ago from the city. I needed a change, a quieter pace, more connection to nature. My pottery studio was thriving, but I felt a disconnect. Everglen felt like a calling. A calling." She smiled. "And it hasn't disappointed. The light, the creek, the ancient oaks, it's all so inspiring." "I know exactly what you mean," Reese replied, his gaze thoughtful. "I came here for similar reasons. The city always felt like it was trying to rush the creative process, demanding speed over soul. Here, time seems to stretch and breathe, allowing the work to unfold naturally." He gestured vaguely with his hand. "My workshop is just outside of town, nestled amongst some old pines. It's my sanctuary." "I pictured it," Elara admitted, a little shyly. "Dust motes dancing in sunbeams, the scent of wood." Reese laughed, a rich, genuine sound. "Remarkably accurate. You must have a keen imagination. Or perhaps a kindred spirit's intuition," she mused, meeting his gaze. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, moving from their respective crafts to their philosophies on art, the beauty of the natural world, and even the simple joys of a perfectly brewed cup of tea or a quiet evening by a fire. Elara learned that Whis had studied art history before turning his hand to woodworking, finding a deeper satisfaction in the tactile act of creation. He spoke of the challenge of coaxing form from raw material, the patience required, and the profound satisfaction of holding a finished piece in his hands. "It's like finding the story already hidden within the wood," he explained, his eyes alight with passion. "You're just the one who helps tell it." "Exactly," Elara exclaimed, leaning forward. "With clay, it's the same. It starts as earth, formless, but it has potential, a spirit waiting to be shaped. You guide it, coax it, but you also have to listen to what it wants to become. Force it too much, and it breaks." They talked for what felt like hours, the world around them fading into a pleasant background hum. They discovered shared interests beyond art, a love for hiking the local trails, a fondness for old books, a quiet appreciation for the changing seasons. Whis recounted a story of discovering a particularly gnarled piece of oak, left behind by a storm, that he spent months carving into a powerful, swirling representation of the wind itself. Elara, in turn, described the challenge of creating a glaze that perfectly mimicked the iridescent shimmer of a dragonfly's wing, a project she had just completed. "I'd love to see your workshop sometime," Elara ventured, feeling emboldened by their easy connection. Whis's eyes crinkled at the corners. "And I yours. Perhaps we could even trade insights, or just share the quiet company of creation." He paused, a comfortable silence stretching between them. "I was thinking if you're free, we could take a walk along the creek this afternoon. It's particularly beautiful this time of year, and there's a spot where the water runs over some ancient moss-covered stones. Excellent inspiration, if you're looking for it." Elara's heart gave another happy flutter. "That sounds wonderful, Whis." They finished their coffees, the warmth of the mugs lingering in their hands. Whis paid, insisting despite Elara's protests, with a gentle smile that brooked no argument. As they left the cafe and walked towards the quieter paths that led to the creek, the sunlight dappled through the leaves, casting shifting patterns on the ground. The creek was as enchanting as Whis had promised. Its waters, swollen slightly from the recent rain, gurgled and flowed over smooth, dark stones. Sunlight filtered through the dense canopy of ancient oaks and maples, painting streaks of gold on the water and highlighting the vibrant green of moss and ferns. The air was cool and fresh, carrying the earthy scent of damp soil and growing things. Whis walked with a relaxed stride, occasionally pointing out a particularly interesting tree root or a unique stone. He spoke of the history of the land, the way the creek had shaped the landscape over millennia, and the creatures that called it home. Elara found herself mesmerized not just by the beauty of the surroundings, but by the quiet passion in his voice. He wasn't just observing nature. He was deeply connected to it, an integral part of its rhythm. They reached a spot where the creek widened into a series of shallow pools, reflecting the sky like broken mirrors. Here, ancient stones, cloaked in emerald moss, lay half-submerged, smoothed by centuries of flowing water. Whis stopped, crouching down beside one of the larger stones, running a gentle hand over its cool, slick surface. "See how the water has sculpted it," he murmured, looking up at Elara. "It's a slow, patient artist, the creek. But its work is profound." Elara knelt beside him, feeling the cool dampness seep through her jeans. "It reminds me of how time shapes us, doesn't it? The gentle erosion, the gradual smoothing of edges." She traced the intricate patterns of moss with her fingertip. "And the moss, it's like a living tapestry, constantly growing, renewing." Whis looked at her, a profound understanding in his eyes. "You see it, too, the stories in the silence, the art in the everyday." They sat there for a long time, simply observing, listening to the creek's song, feeling the gentle breeze rustle the leaves above them. It was a comfortable silence, filled with unspoken understanding, a sense of two souls recognizing a shared frequency. Elara felt a profound sense of peace settle over her, deeper and more resonant than any she had known since moving to Everglen. This wasn't just about the beauty of the place. It was about sharing that beauty, amplifying it, with someone who truly saw it too. As the afternoon began to wane, casting longer shadows through the trees, they slowly made their way back towards the market. The air grew cooler, and a soft golden light enveloped the landscape. "Thank you, Whis," Elara said as they approached the edge of town. "This has been a truly wonderful afternoon." "The pleasure was all mine, Elara," he replied, his smile warm and genuine. "I've enjoyed our conversation and your company more than I can say." He hesitated for a moment, then met her gaze directly. Would you be open to doing this again soon? Perhaps dinner, or another walk, or even a visit to our respective workshops?" Alara's heart swelled with happiness. "I'd love that, Reese. Any of those." "Excellent," he said, a note of satisfaction in his voice. "I'll call you tomorrow if that's all right." "That would be perfect," she confirmed, giving him her phone number, their fingers brushing as she did so, sending a small spark through her. They parted ways just outside the market, Reese heading back to his stall, Alara turning towards her cottage. The walk home felt different than the walk to the market. Then it had been anticipation, a hopeful flutter. Now it was a warm glow, a deep contentment. The Whis of Everglen still whispered, but now it sounded less like a possibility, and more like a promise fulfilled, and a new one just beginning to bloom. The gentle magic she had felt before had deepened, weaving itself into the very fabric of her being. Back in her studio, Alara picked up a lump of clay. Her hands moved instinctively, shaping it into a small, smooth stone, then gently pressing her thumb into its surface, creating a delicate, cupped form. It was a bowl, yes, but it was also a metaphor for the day, for the quiet joy of discovery, for the gentle act of creation shared. She found herself smiling, a soft, unbidden smile that stayed with her long into the evening as she watched the stars begin to pepper the Everglen sky, each one a tiny point of light in the vast, beautiful expanse of possibility. She knew with a quiet certainty that this story was only just beginning. She knew with a quiet certainty that this story was only just beginning. The stars, tiny pinpricks of light against the velvet canvas, seemed to whisper promises of untold chapters. Alara finally tore her gaze from the heavens, a shiver, not of cold, but of burgeoning wonder, tracing its way down her spine. The air was cool and crisp, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth, a comforting counterpoint to the warmth that bloomed in her chest. She carefully gathered her things, her fingers brushing over the still damp clay bowl. It was imperfect, a little lopsided, but utterly hers, and infused with the quiet magic of the afternoon. Walking back to her small rented cottage, the gravel crunched softly under her worn boots. The path was lit by the gentle glow of a crescent moon, casting long, dancing shadows of ancient trees. Everglen was a village that seemed to breathe with the rhythm of nature, and tonight it hummed with a tranquil peace that seeped into Alara's bones. She thought of Silas, his patient hands, the faint smile that had touched his lips as he guided her, the easy rhythm of his presence. He was a man of quiet strength, with eyes that held a depth she was eager to explore. Inside her cottage, the familiar scent of lavender and old wood embraced her. She set the bowl on the small kitchen table, admiring its simple beauty in the soft lamplight. It wasn't just a bowl, it was a tangible memory, a silent testament to a day that had shifted something within her. She peeled an orange, the citrusy aroma filling the air, and ate it slowly, savoring each segment. Her mind replayed moments from the day, the initial awkwardness melting away, the shared laughter over a particularly clumsy attempt at centering the clay, the comfortable silence as they worked side by side. For so long, Alara had felt untethered, drifting after a storm in her life had swept away her old foundations. Her move to Everglen had been an impulse, a desperate need for quiet and a fresh start, far from the demanding city life and the echoes of a relationship that had withered. She hadn't expected to find connection so quickly, let alone a man whose presence felt like a gentle anchor. Silas wasn't loud or flashy. He was steady, grounding, like the earth from which he drew his art. She thought of her old life, a life of deadlines and expectations, of superficial connections and hurried meals. It felt distant now, like a half-forgotten dream. Here, in Everglen, time seemed to slow, allowing space for introspection, for growth, for simply being. She hadn't realized how starved she was for this kind of quiet joy, this genuine connection to something real and tangible. Before bed, Alara brewed a cup of chamomile tea, its comforting warmth seeping into her hands. She gazed out her window at the starry sky again, a sense of profound gratitude washing over her. She felt lighter than she had in years, as if a heavy cloak had been shed. The thought of Silas brought a soft smile to her lips, a flutter in her chest. It was a new feeling, tender and hopeful, like the delicate bloom of a spring flower. She drifted off to sleep with the image of his kind eyes and strong, clay-dusted hands imprinted on her mind, dreaming of spinning wheels and shared silences. Oh, when? The morning dawned clear and bright, painting the cottage in hues of soft gold. Elara woke feeling invigorated, a lightness in her step that hadn't been there in ages. She made coffee, its rich aroma mingling with the lingering scent of lavender. After a light breakfast, she decided to explore Everglen properly. So far, her excursions had been limited to the general store and Silas' studio, but today, she wanted to immerse herself in the village's quiet charm. She pulled on a cozy knitted sweater and her sturdy boots, grabbed a small canvas bag, and headed out. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of wood smoke and damp leaves. Everglen was nestled in a valley, surrounded by rolling hills covered in ancient forests, their autumnal foliage a tapestry of fiery reds and golden yellows. The village itself was a collection of quaint stone and timber cottages, many with flower boxes overflowing even in the cooler weather, their windows adorned with lace curtains. Her first stop was the village square, a charming expanse of cobblestones with a weathered stone fountain at its center, its gentle trickle a soothing sound. A few locals were already out and about. An elderly woman with a basket of fresh bread smiled warmly at Elara, offering a soft "Good morning, dear." Elara returned the smile, a genuine warmth spreading through her. This was so different from the hurried, anonymous interactions of the city. She wandered into a small bookshop, its wooden shelves creaking under the weight of countless stories. The air was thick, with the scent of old paper and dust, a comforting embrace for any book lover. She lost herself for a while, browsing titles, before emerging with a slim volume of poetry. Next, she found a tiny cafe, its windows steamed up, emanating the irresistible aroma of roasted coffee and freshly baked pastries. As she stepped inside, the chime above the door announced her arrival. The cafe was cozy, with mismatched wooden tables and chairs, and a counter displaying an array of tempting treats. Behind the counter, a woman with a cascade of fiery red curls and a perpetually cheerful expression looked up. "Welcome, darling. What can I get for you?" "Just a coffee, please," Elara said, taking in the inviting atmosphere. "And perhaps one of those lemon poppy seed muffins." "Excellent choice," the woman chirped, her hands moving with practiced efficiency. "New to Everglen, aren't you? I'm Maeve. I run this place." She extended a flour-dusted hand, her smile infectious. "Elara," she replied, shaking Maeve's hand. "Yes, just moved here a few days ago. It's lovely." "It truly is," Maeve agreed, pushing a steaming mug and a generously sized muffin across the counter. "You'll find everyone here is friendly, and if you're looking for good company, the weekly village craft market is on Saturday. Loads of lovely things, and Silas always has a stall." Elara felt a pleasant flush rise to her cheeks at the mention of Silas. "Oh, I met Silas yesterday. He taught me a bit of pottery." Maeve's eyes twinkled. "Did he now? That's wonderful. He's a good man, our Silas. A bit quiet, but a heart of gold, and a true artist." Elara nodded, taking a sip of her coffee. It was rich and perfectly brewed. "He certainly is." Maeve paused, wiping down the counter. "So, what brings you to our little corner of the world, Elara? If you don't mind me asking, of course." Elara hesitated for a moment, then found herself speaking with an ease she hadn't anticipated. "Just a change. A need for something slower, more real. I was in the city, working in marketing, and it just wasn't fulfilling anymore." She didn't delve into the personal upheavals, sensing that Maeve, though friendly, respected unspoken boundaries. "Ah, the call of the wild, eh?" Maeve chuckled. "Many of us here have felt it. Everglen has a way of drawing in those who seek a quieter path. Well, I hope you find what you're looking for, Elara. And don't be a stranger. We love a new face around here." Elara spent the rest of the morning exploring the edges of the village, finding a hidden path that led to a small, gurgling stream, its banks lined with moss-covered stones. She sat on a fallen log, listening to the water, feeling the gentle breeze on her face. The poetry book remained unopened in her bag. The poetry of Everglen itself was enough for now. The sense of belonging, tentative yesterday, was growing stronger, nurtured by the simple kindnesses she'd encountered. Later that afternoon, as Elara was heading back toward her cottage, she saw a familiar figure emerging from a cluster of ancient oak trees bordering the village green. Silas. He was carrying a wicker basket, presumably filled with foraged goods, and his gaze was fixed on something in the distance. He looked up, and their eyes met. A slow smile spread across his face, lighting up his features. "Elara," he greeted, his voice a warm rumble. "Good afternoon. Enjoying your explorations?" "I am," she replied, her own smile mirroring his. "Everglen is even more beautiful than I imagined. I just had coffee at Maeve's cafe. She told me about the craft market." "Ah, Maeve," Silas chuckled. "She's the village gossip, but with the best intentions. Yes, the market is always a lively affair. I'll be there with some new pieces." "I'd like to see them," Elara said, a genuine eagerness in her tone. She noticed his basket. "Are you foraging?" He held it up slightly. "Just some wild mushrooms and a few late-season berries. My grandmother taught me which ones are safe. She was quite the herbalist." A hint of nostalgia touched his eyes. "That's lovely," Elara said, imagining a younger Silas learning from his grandmother amidst these very woods. "Do you often go foraging?" "Whenever I can," he replied. "It's a good way to clear the mind and connect with the land. And sometimes, inspiration for a new piece of pottery strikes out here. The textures of the bark, the patterns of the leaves, the way the light filters through the canopy." He gestured vaguely towards the forest, his passion evident. Elara found herself captivated by his quiet enthusiasm. "I can see that. It's so peaceful out here. Very different from where I used to live." Silas nodded, his gaze thoughtful. "The city can be overwhelming. I visited a few times, but I always felt a pull back to Everglen. This place, it has a way of grounding you." "It certainly does," Elara agreed, thinking of her own recent past. "I've felt more grounded in the past 2 days than I have in years." They walked along the edge of the green, the afternoon sun casting long shadows. "How's your bowl doing?" Silas asked, a gentle teasing note in his voice. Elara laughed softly. "It's drying. I haven't dared to touch it much. It reminds me of a perfectly imperfect day." "All good art has its imperfections," he said, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "They tell a story, just like people." His words resonated with her, stirring a deeper chord. She wondered if he was referring to his own story, or perhaps hinting at hers. "Do you think so?" "Absolutely," he affirmed, turning to face her fully as they reached a fork in the path, one leading to her cottage, the other towards his studio. The cracks, the uneven edges, the places where the clay didn't quite behave as expected, they add character, depth. They make it unique. He paused, his gaze holding hers. They make it real. A comfortable silence settled between them, charged with unspoken understanding. Elara felt a warmth spread through her, a sense of being seen, truly seen, for the first time in a long while. It wasn't just about the pottery. It was about the shared recognition of vulnerability, of the beauty and flaws. "Perhaps," Elara said softly, "that's what I needed to learn. That imperfections can be beautiful." Silas offered a small, knowing smile. "It's a good lesson to carry. Tell me," he continued, changing the subject slightly, "do you have any plans for dinner? I was thinking of making a simple vegetable stew with some of these mushrooms." He gestured to his basket. "There's always too much for one." Elara's heart fluttered. An invitation. A simple, unassuming invitation, yet it felt monumental. I don't have plans," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "That sounds lovely." "Great," he said, his smile widening. "Meet me at the studio, say, 7 o'clock? It's where I have my small kitchen." 7 it is, she confirmed, a bright warmth spreading through her. "Thank you, Silas." "My pleasure, Elara," he replied. And with a final lingering look, he turned and headed down the path towards his studio. Elara walked the short distance to her cottage feeling utterly buoyant. A dinner invitation. It was another step, a gentle progression, into this new, unexpected chapter. She quickly changed into a fresh pair of jeans and a clean sweater, her mind buzzing with a pleasant anticipation. She even spent a few minutes brushing her hair, a small act of self-care that felt significant. In. At precisely 7 o'clock, Elara knocked on the heavy wooden door of Silas's studio. The scent of wood smoke and something savory immediately greeted her as he opened it. The studio, even in the evening light, felt warm and inviting, the air imbued with the earthy smell of clay and the lingering aroma of the stew. "Come in," Silas said, stepping aside. He had shed his foraging clothes and was wearing a simple dark shirt that accentuated the breadth of his shoulders. His hair was slightly damp, as if he'd just washed it. The studio was transformed. The large work tables were pushed aside, and in the center, a small round table was set with two mismatched ceramic plates, clearly his own creations, and simple cutlery. A single beeswax candle flickered in the middle, casting a soft, golden glow. "It smells wonderful," Alara said, genuinely impressed by the transformation. "Just a simple stew," Silas demurred, but a pleased expression touched his face. "Please, have a seat." They settled into their chairs, the candle flame dancing between them. The stew was indeed wonderful, rich with vegetables, earthy mushrooms, and fragrant herbs. It was wholesome and comforting, a perfect meal for a cool autumn evening. "This is delicious, Silas," Alara said, savoring a spoonful. "You're a good cook." "My grandmother taught me that too," he said with a wry smile. "Said a man should be able to feed himself, and others, well." "She sounds like a wise woman," Alara commented. "She was," he agreed, his gaze distant for a moment. "She passed away a few years ago. She was the reason I stayed in Everglen, even after my parents moved away for work. This studio, it was hers, initially. I just continued her legacy." Alara felt a pang of understanding. It must be hard, losing someone like that. Silas nodded slowly. "It was, but she left me with so much, not just the studio, but a love for this craft, a connection to this land, and a belief in finding beauty in the everyday. She always said, 'Life is like clay, Alara. You shape it, you mold it. You sometimes make mistakes, but you always have the chance to start fresh, to create something new.'" Alara's eyes widened. "That's exactly what I needed to hear." She took a deep breath. "My own life, it felt like it shattered a few months ago. A relationship ended. A job I thought I loved turned hollow. I felt lost, like I'd lost my own shape. Coming here was an attempt to find it again." Silas listened patiently, his gaze steady and empathetic. He didn't offer platitudes, just an accepting silence that invited her to share more if she wished. "I think I was so focused on the perfect shape, the perfect life, that I missed the beauty in the process, the imperfections," she continued, feeling a surprising ease in opening up to him. "Your grandmother's words, they resonate profoundly." "She would have liked you," Silas said, a genuine warmth in his voice. "She saw the potential in everyone, especially those who were searching." They continued to eat, the conversation flowing easily between them. They talked about their favorite books, the beauty of the changing seasons, the simple joys of a quiet life. Alara found herself laughing more freely than she had in years, and Silas, though still reserved, opened up in small, significant ways, sharing anecdotes about growing up in Everglen, his early struggles with pottery, and the profound peace he found in working with clay. After they finished the stew, Silas offered her a cup of herbal tea, brewed from some of his foraged herbs. The warmth spread through her, comforting and soothing. "Thank you for dinner, Silas," Alara said, feeling a deep sense of contentment. "It was truly wonderful, and thank you for sharing your stories and your grandmother's wisdom." "My pleasure, Alara," he replied, his eyes soft in the candlelight. "It's good to have company. This studio can be a quiet place, sometimes too quiet." "I can imagine," she said. "But it's a beautiful quiet, a productive quiet." He walked her to the door, the chill of the night air a stark contrast to the warmth of the studio. "Are you coming to the market on Saturday?" he asked, his hand resting lightly on the doorframe. "I wouldn't miss it," Alara promised, her gaze meeting his. There was a gentle pull, a silent acknowledgement of the growing connection between them. The air thrummed with unspoken possibility. "Good," he said, a small smile playing on his lips. "I'll save you a piece of my best work." "I look forward to it," she replied, her heart doing a little leap. As she walked back to her cottage, the moon was higher in the sky, casting a silvery glow over Everglen. The quiet certainty she had felt the night before had deepened, blooming into a quiet joy. The story was indeed only just beginning. And with each shared moment, each gentle conversation, each quiet glance, Alara felt another page turning, revealing a path she hadn't known she was seeking, but one that felt undeniably, wonderfully right. Wonderfully right. She felt a lightness, a sense of belonging, and a quiet thrill for what the next chapter might hold in this charming, unexpected corner of the world. The days in Everglen settled into a rhythm Alara hadn't known she craved. Each morning, she would wake to the soft light filtering through her window, the scent of fresh coffee drifting up from Liam's kitchen below. Their shared moments expanded naturally, like the unfolding petals of a bloom. They'd wander through the antique shop, Liam pointing out the stories behind each chipped teacup and sturdy oak dresser, his voice a low, comforting murmur. Alara, with her city-honed eye for aesthetics, found herself suggesting new arrangements, dusting forgotten corners. She discovered a surprising joy in the tactile world of old things, finding beauty in their imperfections and the silent histories they held. "You have a knack for this, Alara," Liam had observed one afternoon, watching her carefully arrange a collection of antique silver frames. "They look happier there." She laughed, a sound that felt lighter, freer, than any she'd uttered in years. Perhaps they just needed a fresh perspective, Liam. A little less clutter, a little more intention. Their evenings were equally simple and profound. Sometimes they would cook together in Liam's cozy kitchen, the air thick with the aroma of herbs and simmering sauces, their hands brushing as they reached for ingredients. Other times they'd sit by the crackling fireplace in his living room, a mug of herbal tea warming their hands as they read, or simply talked. They spoke of everything and nothing, their childhoods, the books they loved, the quiet dreams they harbored. Alara learned about Liam's love for ancient maps and forgotten languages, his quiet devotion to the Everglen community, and the gentle melancholy that sometimes touched his eyes when he spoke of his parents, who had started the shop. Liam learned about Alara's early ambitions in design, her disillusionment with the relentless pace of city life, and the quiet ache she'd carried for a sense of belonging she hadn't realized was missing until she found it here. The town itself embraced her with a warm, unhurried ease. Mrs. Gable from the bakery would always save her a fresh scone. Mr. Henderson from the hardware store would offer a gruff but kind word, and the children, initially shy, now waved enthusiastically as she passed. Alara found herself volunteering at the local library, helping organize a small craft fair, and even joining the weekly book club, where she discovered a shared passion for classic literature with Mrs. Peterson, the mayor's wife. Everglen was more than just a place. It was a tapestry woven with kindness and interconnected lives, and Alara felt herself slowly but surely becoming a thread in its vibrant pattern. Liam's shop, Everglen Curios, began to subtly transform under their combined influence. Alara's eye for presentation brought a new charm to the displays, highlighting the unique beauty of each item. She helped him set up a simple online presence, cautiously introducing a few of their more unique pieces to a wider audience, though Liam insisted the heart of the shop would always be its physical presence. The slight increase in foot traffic and online inquiries brought a quiet satisfaction to Liam, a gentle hum of shared purpose that deepened their connection. One crisp autumn afternoon, as leaves painted the streets in hues of amber and gold, Alara received an email. It was from her former boss, a high-powered, impeccably dressed woman named Genevieve. The subject line read, "Exciting opportunity, 9CINC." Alara's heart gave a strange, unwelcome lurch. Genevieve was offering her a senior design position at a prestigious new firm, a step up from her previous role, with a salary that dwarfed anything she could imagine earning in Everglen. It was everything she had once strived for, the kind of offer that would have sent her into a frenzy of excitement just months ago. She stared at the screen, the vibrant autumn light outside her window suddenly seeming muted. The offer was real, tangible, a siren song from the life she had so decisively left behind. Her old apartment, her bustling social circle, the thrill of high-stakes projects, for a fleeting moment, they glimmered with an intoxicating allure. She felt a pang of confusion, a disorienting sense of being torn between two worlds. She folded her laptop shut, the click echoing in the sudden quiet of her apartment. That evening, she was unusually subdued. Liam, perceptive as always, noticed. He found her staring out the window, a half-read book forgotten in her lap. "Everything all right, Alara?" he asked softly, sitting beside her on the worn velvet sofa. His presence was a warm anchor in her suddenly turbulent thoughts. She hesitated and sighed, turning to face him. I received an offer today. From New York? A really good one? Liam's expression remained gentle, but she saw a flicker of something in his eyes, a familiar shadow of apprehension. Oh, he said, his voice a little quieter than usual. That's quite something. It is, she agreed, tracing the pattern on her dress. It's what I always wanted, what I worked for. A big firm, big projects, the kind of career I thought was my destiny. She looked at him, her gaze troubled. But now, I don't know. He reached out, taking her hand in his thumb gently stroking her knuckles. And what does your heart tell you now, Elara? She felt a wave of emotion wash over her, a mix of fear, longing, and a profound sense of peace that had only recently settled into her life. My heart feels like it belongs here, Liam, she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. But my head, it's screaming about all the opportunities, the prestige, the life I spent years building. The life you left because it felt empty, Liam reminded her gently, his eyes holding hers. Is the emptiness still there if you picture yourself back in it? Elara closed her eyes, trying to conjure the image of her old office, the rush of the subway, the polished gleam of a high-rise conference room. And yes, beneath the surface glamour, she felt a familiar hollowness, a sense of frantic energy that ultimately led nowhere fulfilling. She opened her eyes, meeting Liam's steady gaze. No, she said, a tear escaping and trailing down her cheek. The emptiness is still there, but the fear of letting go of what I thought I wanted, that's real too. It's all right to be afraid, Liam said, pulling her closer, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. It means you care, but you don't have to choose the path that makes you afraid, Elara. You can choose the one that makes you feel alive, whole. She leaned into his warmth, drawing comfort from his unwavering presence. And what if I choose Everglen, and then regret it? And what if you choose New York, and regret Jaita? He countered softly. Life isn't about avoiding regret, Elara. It's about choosing the path that resonates most deeply with who you are right now. And I hope more than anything that path leads you to stay. His voice was low, filled with an uncharacteristic vulnerability that touched her deeply. I don't know what I would do without you here, Elara. You've brought so much light, so much joy, not just to the shop, but to me. His confession hung in the air, a delicate, precious thing. Elara's heart swelled. It wasn't a demand, or an ultimatum, but a gentle, honest plea from a man who rarely showed his deepest emotions. She knew, in that moment, that this quiet, unassuming man, this charming, unexpected corner of the world, had stolen her heart entirely. The next few days were a blur of introspection and quiet contemplation. She politely declined Genevieve's offer, sending a carefully worded email that spoke of a change in priorities and a newfound sense of purpose. The act of hitting send was both terrifying and exhilarating, a definitive severing of ties with a past that no longer served her. A profound sense of relief washed over her, replacing the lingering anxiety. She spent the afternoon walking through Everglen, seeing it with fresh eyes. The familiar storefronts, the friendly faces, the ancient oak trees lining the path to the creek, they weren't just scenery, they were home. She realized that her design skills weren't confined to city skyscrapers. Everglen was full of small businesses that could benefit from a fresh look, homes that yearned for thoughtful touches, and a community that valued creativity. She could build a new kind of design practice here, one rooted in connection, sustainability, and the unique charm of a small town. That evening, she found Liam in the shop, meticulously polishing a grandfather clock. She walked up to him, a smile blooming on her face, a lightness in her step she hadn't felt in days. I said no, she announced, her voice clear and joyful. Liam slowly turned, his eyes widening slightly. A slow, radiant smile spread across his face, transforming his features. You did? I did, she confirmed, reaching out to cup his cheek. And I'm not afraid anymore. I know where I belong, Liam, and it's here, with you, and with Everglen. She paused, her gaze softening. And I have an idea about how I can still be a designer here. Helping local businesses, helping people make their homes truly theirs. It wouldn't be about chasing trends or corporate contracts. It would be about creating beauty and connection right here. Liam's hand came up to cover hers, holding it against his cheek. Elara, he breathed, his voice thick with emotion. That's wonderful. You would be brilliant at it. He looked at her, his eyes shining. And I selfishly hope it means you'll still be around to help me with my dusty old curios, too. She laughed, a joyous sound. Always. In fact, I was thinking, the apartment above the shop, it has such good bones. We could make a truly beautiful home out of it. Together. Together. Liam's smile deepened, a warmth spreading through her at the unspoken understanding in his eyes. He reached into the pocket of his apron, pulling out a small, intricately carved wooden box she'd never seen before. It was old, smooth from years of handling, and smelled faintly of cedar. "Elara," he began, his voice a little shaky, but filled with a quiet certainty that mirrored her own. "I found this box years ago, in a dusty corner of the shop. I never knew what to put in it. I always felt it was waiting for something truly precious." He opened the box, and nestled inside, on a bed of faded velvet, was a simple silver ring. It wasn't flashy or ornate, but elegant and timeless, with a single, small, perfectly cut sapphire that shimmered with a deep, peaceful blue. "It belonged to my grandmother. She always said it was the color of quiet wisdom and unwavering truth." He took the ring out, his gaze never leaving hers. "Elara, you came into my life like a breath of fresh air, a burst of color in a world I thought was perfectly content in its muted tones. You've shown me what true connection feels like, what it means to share a life, to build something beautiful together. My story felt like it was just beginning that first night you walked into the shop. But now, I want to know what the rest of the chapters hold." He knelt before her, his eyes earnest and full of love. "Elara Vance, will you marry me? Will you build a life with me here in Everglen and make this dusty old shop and my quiet life truly our home?" Tears streamed down Elara's face, but they were tears of overwhelming happiness, of profound gratitude. This wasn't the grand, public proposal she might have once envisioned, but it was infinitely more perfect, more Angmamine. It was quiet, intimate, steeped in history and heartfelt sincerity. "Yes," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Oh, Liam, yes, 1,000 times yes." He rose, a relieved and joyous smile on his face, and carefully slid the sapphire ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, a cool, reassuring weight. He then pulled her into a warm, tender embrace, holding her close as if she might vanish. She buried her face in his shoulder, inhaling the comforting scent of old books and fresh wood shavings that always clung to him. "Our story," she murmured against his shirt, "is going to be the best one yet." The wedding was a small, intimate affair held in the blooming garden behind the Everglen Community Hall, bathed in the soft glow of a late spring afternoon. Mrs. Gable baked a magnificent 3-tiered cake. Mr. Henderson carved intricate wooden favors, and the entire town turned out, their faces beaming with genuine joy for the couple who had found each other in their quiet corner of the world. Elara wore a simple, elegant gown she had designed herself, adorned with delicate lace her grandmother had once worn. Liam, in a tweed suit that highlighted his gentle, classic charm, looked at her as if she were the most precious treasure in his entire collection. Their new life unfolded beautifully, a tapestry woven with shared dreams and daily joys. The apartment above the shop became their sanctuary, transformed by Elara's vision and Liam's steady hands into a cozy, light-filled haven. They kept the old fireplace, restored the original hardwood floors, and filled it with a blend of Liam's cherished antiques and Elara's modern, comfortable touches. It was a space that felt truly theirs, a testament to their combined histories and their shared future. Elara's design business, Everglen Interiors, flourished. She found immense satisfaction in helping her neighbors create spaces that reflected their own stories, bringing beauty and functionality to the homes and businesses of the town she now loved so fiercely. She even started curating a small section of Everglen curios dedicated to unique, locally sourced decor items, seamlessly blending her passion with Liam's. And Liam, he continued to be the steady, loving presence she had always longed for. His quiet strength was her anchor, his gentle humor her constant delight. They still took their evening walks by the creek, their hands intertwined, sharing the quiet observations of the day. They still cooked together, read together, dreamed together. One evening, years later, as Elara sat by the fireplace, a contented sigh escaping her lips. Liam sat down beside her, a familiar book in his hand. He opened it to a page marked with a dried pressed daisy. It was the very book she had been holding that first night she met him, the one he had returned to her. "Remember this?" he asked, his voice soft, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. Ilara leaned her head on his shoulder. "How could I forget? The beginning of our story." He turned to the last page where she had once idly doodled a small, intertwining vine. "And now look," he said, gesturing around their warm, welcoming home, to the life they had built together. "The story isn't just beginning anymore. It's rich, full, and still unfolding, with every sunrise, every shared laugh, every quiet moment." She looked at the sapphire ring on her finger, sparkling softly in the firelight, then up at Liam, his profile etched with a piece she had helped him find. He was her quiet certainty, her unexpected joy, her forever home. The path she hadn't known she was seeking had led her straight to him, to this charming, vibrant corner of the world. And with each passing day, Ilara knew, with a warmth that settled deep in her heart, that this was indeed, wonderfully, perfectly right. The story wasn't just continuing, it was flourishing, a masterpiece of love, belonging, and enduring happiness. And as she drifted off to sleep, nestled safely in Liam's arms, she knew the next chapter would be just as beautiful.